Michael Popok, Legal AF. Donald Trump and the Missing Gun. No, it's not a perverse Dr. Seuss book. It is reality. And apparently an admission that Donald Trump just made during his probation interview, which only lasted a half an hour with the New York Probation Department in order for them to create a pre-sentencing report to recommend a sentence for his convictions in New York, he disclosed that he's kept the third gun. He had 3 guns. There were 3 shooters. 2 guns he turned in appropriately as a condition of his release in terms of all of his criminal prosecutions, New York, D.C., Florida, and Georgia. But he kept a gun. In fact, he shipped it, and he admitted this in his interview as reporting has happened in the Daily Beast and other places. He shipped the gun to Florida. Now, the statutes and the conditions of release say own or possess. Even if he disassembled the gun, sent it in parts, each part in a different package in a FedEx, and had it transported or on Trump Air or whatever he calls that airplane, it is a violation of his conditions of release. And I would expect every prosecutor, Jack Smith, Fulton County DA, Fani Willis, Alvin Bragg, Special Counsel Jack Smith again, to bring this to the attention of the judges presiding over his case. Now, this is different from now that he's a felon, 34-count convicted felon, or will be an adjudged convicted felon on July 11th when Judge Merchan enters the judgment of conviction. This is a different issue. He had to, as an indicted felon, as an indicted defendant facing felony charges in the criminal justice system, I think is a better way to put it. He had to, as a condition of his release, whether set by a magistrate judge or set by a federal judge or a state judge, he had to turn in his weapons. And apparently he had no problem with the first 2. I'm even surprised, as a side note, that we allowed him to have 3 guns this whole time. But he got a concealed weapons permit in New York. Let me put a pin in that for a minute. I'm going to talk in this hot take about the concealed weapons permit, must carry, right to carry rules and regulations overall in the United States, because they are different and they are state by state. Despite the existence of the Second Amendment, every state sort of regulates within the Second Amendment, on top of the Second Amendment, people's right to carry, people's right to have a concealed weapon or an open carry, meaning you have a gun on your hip. And there are certain places in Texas where you can walk around with a gun or an AR-14 or 40, whatever it is, or, shotgun. You can go into your local bar or tavern and you can bring your gun into your McDonald's. Put that on hold for a minute. Donald Trump said he still had one of the 3 guns and that it was in Florida. Now, his spokespeople say it was properly shipped to Florida. I don't know what that means. I mean, if this is a gun that he owns or controls, unless he sold it, he had to have turned it in. And by not doing it, he's committed another crime, potentially, and he's violated the conditions of his release. It is a big problem. Now as a felon, he's also not allowed to have handguns or firearms. So we got 2 issues kind of colliding on top of each other. He's a convicted felon, not allowed to have a gun. He's a condition of release criminal defendant and wasn't allowed to have guns since last March, if not before. And he just decided to take his own special dispensation and save one of his guns and ship it to Florida. And we'll talk about Florida next. Let me talk quickly about the concealed weapons permit laws. Most states regulate people's ability to own a handgun lawfully. Most states have, including New York, strict concealed weapons permit application and regulatory processes. I've gone through it myself in Florida, back when they had one. In New York, until recently, you had to show a compelling need for personal safety protection in order to have a concealed weapons permit. It was very difficult until recently to get a weapon in New York, to be able to own it lawfully, and to have a concealed carry permit, which could be revoked. It required gun safety training, so you understand how the weapon works, go to a gun range, learn how it shoots, learn how to maintain it, maintenance, regulations, that type of thing. And so that's a license or a privilege, and that can be revoked. In fact, the New York Police Department, which regulates in the area of the concealed weapons permit, is going to apparently revoke Donald Trump's concealed weapon permit, meaning usually there is a gun or a firearm that is attached to that permit, so he would never be able to have it, and he wouldn't be able to have it ever until his concealed weapons permit was somehow reinstated as a felon. But in the meantime, he wasn't supposed to have the guns anyway as a condition of his release. Now, we had heard he turned in his guns back in March. We were like, all right, well, that's a good thing. Now we understand that one of the 3 guns is missing. And the Palm Beach County Police Department, which also regulates in that area, is looking into, apparently, according to its spokespeople, is looking into what happened to that weapon. It's their responsibility as well. They can't have a registered or unregistered firearm that they don't know where it is. Now, the spokespeople for Donald Trump have said, don't worry, we shipped it appropriately to Florida. I don't even know what that means. Yes, you can dismantle the gun. People take them on airplanes all the time. You have to put them in a locked box. You have to have the ammo separate from the firearm. You have to have permits. You have to show it, at the ticket counter, all that stuff. And you could ship a gun too, separately, along with the ammunition. But I don't care if it's in 57 different packages. If Donald Trump still owns and ultimately possesses that weapon, he has violated the terms and the conditions of his release. This is separate from he won't be able to use them. He'd have to have them locked away. My days have been jam-packed for as long as I can remember, which makes winding down at night a tall task. Luckily, it's great sleep summer with our partner, Via Hemp. No more counting sheep just to be awake at 3 a.m. And trust me, I've been there. Via Hemp is a company dedicated to harnessing the natural benefits of hemp to create high-quality wellness products. Trusted by over 250,000 customers, Via Hemp aims to empower individuals to enhance their quality of life naturally, offering solutions that promote sleep and relaxation with their new Dreams formulations, which now have passion flower and L-theanine. Via offers 2, 5, and 10 milligram options for them, as well as their 0 milligram Zen, allowing you to customize your sleep journey. Via is the only lifestyle hemp brand offering a craft cannabis experience. They use compounds found in hemp along with active plant extracts to create products, each with a specific effect in mind. Whether you want to get better sleep, ease anxiety, or enhance your mood, they have something for you. And the best part, Via legally ships to all 50 states in discreet packaging directly to your door with a worry-free guarantee. No medical card required. So if you're 21 and over, check out our link to Via's website and our description for 15% off. Keeping up with the hectic political and law news cycle, along with being a practicing attorney, keeps my brain constantly racing, which is why I've been in love with their Dream formula for gummies. It always drifts me right to sleep, and the best part is I wake up feeling completely replenished. If you're 21 or over, check out the link to Via in our description and use the code LEGALAF to receive 15% off. After you purchase, they ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Get the rest you deserve with Dreams from Via. See, if you don't have a concealed weapons permit, some states say you can't even own them. You can't even have them in a locked safe somewhere in your house for home protection. Now, there's some battles about the Second Amendment and whether those concealed weapon permit regulations will ultimately hold up. But it is an attempt to regulate. I mean, we have a Supreme Court that under the New York Rifle Association case from a couple of years ago said that under the Second Amendment, unless the regulation existed back in old-timey days in the 1800s about gun control, we're not going to recognize those limitations on the Second Amendment. I never understood the mismatch. Second Amendment came in another period of another era of our time, and why we're using the Wild Wild West in the 1800s as a point of reference, I have no idea. But that is the law under the Gruen case. Put that aside for a minute. Other states say, like Texas and Florida, you don't conceal weapons permit. You don't need that Second Amendment. I suddenly go into some other accent when I talk about that. Texas, there's even places in Texas you can open carry, put a gun on your hip, right? Wear bullets on your chest, carry a weapon in the streets, go to your local McDonald's, whatever you want to do. It's hard to believe. Florida had a concealed weapons permit process. You had to take training. You had to learn about your firearm. You had to learn how to shoot it. You had to learn how to maintain it and for gun safety and all of that, all those good things. And then they did a background check and they gave you a license. Governor DeSantis, in his infinite wisdom, decided under the Second Amendment and the new decision by the Supreme Court, you don't need a concealed weapons permit to own a gun and to have a gun in Florida. So people are just running around. The police and law enforcement have no idea where these guns are, where they came from, right? There's no requirement to register them at your local police department, and you can just have a gun. Now, it has to be concealed. They're not allowing you to walk around, your local restaurant with a gun on your hip. However, we're verging into that territory. New York, a different story. Very, very tight in the ability, very, very hard to get a concealed weapons permit even today. So Donald Trump's is going to be revoked. But separately, we got this crime because he can't, as a condition of his release, have a gun. Donald Trump just decided, I don't want to turn in my third gun. I don't know if it was some sort of hand-me-down, legacy, historic firearm. I don't know what it was, but it needed to be turned in. And he was so brazen that during the interview with the probation department to create the pre-sentencing report, he just admitted it in front of his lawyer. That's the reporting. Yep, didn't turn in that third gun. And he gave the interview in Florida at Lago by video conference back to New York with the probation department. So they were like, listen, it was like a half an hour thing. So it wasn't that detailed. I mean, they're going to do their own background check on Donald Trump. Not hard. Just Google Donald Trump and you can create a dossier. But they wanted to ask some pertinent questions and get some information out of him. It's yet to be seen whether he's going to have the mental health evaluation, which is necessary. That may be for another day. But in doing so, they asked him about his firearms. It's on the top of the mind and the tip of the tongue of law enforcement. Do you, Mr. Felon, have a firearm? And rather than say, no, I turned them all in, Donald Trump said, I have one here in Florida, in Mar-a-Lago. Probably thinking, well, I don't need a permit. He's confused anyway. He probably thought, I don't need a permit to carry this weapon in Florida because of Governor DeSantis. That is a different issue, as I've outlined on this hot take, from your ability to have it as a condition of your release from the criminal justice system while you await your trial. That is different. And I'm telling you, in every one of those states, Georgia, D.C., Florida, and New York, it was a condition of his release that he turn in his weapons. So now we're going to see, now that that reporting is out, if that is accurate, which I believe it is, if that is accurate, all of the prosecutors in all the different cases have to bring it to the attention of the judge, and they have to decide what to do next. See if that's a condition of his, if that condition has to be revoked, if some other fine or sanction or contempt has to be found against Donald Trump. He's already facing continued contempt sanctions in processes up in New York. And we'll see what happens as we await this week the rulings by the United States Supreme Court on a number of bombshell issues that will rock our republic. A new decision on abortion, a new decision on gun control and the ability to own guns, a new decision about immunity and Donald Trump and whether he's going to be facing all 4 of his criminal charges in the District of Columbia. All up for grabs this week as the Supreme Court wraps up its term by issuing its final opinions. A Supreme Court that is in tatters ethically, as Chief Justice and Justice Roberts, who is circling the drain of history. That's what we're waiting on. That branch of government to act in the same week that Hunter Biden got convicted for owning a handgun and possessing a handgun for 11 days after he lied on an application about his addiction to crack. That's where we're at. And I'm going to continue to follow it right here on the MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF. That's a show, people ask me, how'd you come up with that name? Now you know why when you hear stories like this. Every Wednesday and Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the MeidasTouch Network, exclusively there. We curate the top 4 or 5 stories at the intersection of law and politics and lawyers on Legal AF. And the co-anchors, Karen Friedman, Nick Nifolo, Michael Popok, and Ben Meiselas bring it to you the only way we know how to bring it, in an informative, entertaining way. Hopefully you'll find it that way. And then you can pick us up on audio podcast platforms of your choice. Free subscribe to the MeidasTouch Network. We need your help. We're building this network with our bare hands, with your help. No outside investors. This is it. You can help us by leaving a comment here, leaving a thumbs up here. We have a Patreon for Legal AF for those that really want to give their monetary support. Every other support is really important and it's all free. But if you want to go the extra step, patreon.com/legalaf. We break down the law at the intersection of law and politics for non-lawyers and lawyers alike. Exclusive content you'll find nowhere else on the internet, nowhere else on Patreon, patreon.com/legalaf. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.